Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's lesson. We've spent our weeks talking about the human body and how to draw the body in a proportionally accurate way. We started off, I wanted to see that you remembered how to draw the face and where things go. And remember that when we talk about both facial proportions and the body, we're really dealing with the bone structure underneath that form. So if we're looking at drawing the human body, we're looking at drawing based off of how those bones exist and how they move. So we looked at the human body last week, looking at drawing a proportionally accurate body. We looked at some videos from both myself and Mr. Grosvenor on some different forms that we can do and some different methods and tricks that we can do when drawing the human body. And so this week we're going to take that concept of taking a proportionally accurate body and we're going to explore the ideas of gesture and figure drawing. Now, if you continue in with your art career, gesture and figure drawing are going to be hugely important. Gesture drawing is really like the key of drawing human people. And then if you take any art class in college, you're going to be doing figure drawings where you're looking at a model, drawing that model for 2 to 4 hours at a time in a single sitting. And so we're going to look at gesture drawing and figure drawing together this week. And then next week, we're going to be looking at how emotion can be expressed both through the face and through the body. And so we're going to look at gesture and figure drawing this week. You can see I've got your job for this week over here on the side of the board. First step is to watch the videos. I'm going to have you watch this one, and then I'm also going to link a Proco video on YouTube where he's going to walk you through gesture drawing with a little bit more polish than here. And then we're going to create 10 gesture drawings. And that's going to be 10 different poses. And then you're also going to create 2 figure drawings. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between gesture and figure drawing in just a minute. So when we start with gesture, the way we can look at and kind of define or break down this word is really capturing like the movement or the flow, or really one thing that I love is gesture drawing is all about capturing the essence of that body at that specific time during that specific movement. So if we were doing a gesture of Mr. Reynolds lecturing and teaching up here at the board, you'd be looking at how my body is moving, how if we were to capture that in one single visual bit of information, how we would show that. Gesture drawings are quick. They are not long, drawn out things. Most gesture drawings, if you're doing them well, should take between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. If you're doing it less than 30 seconds, chances are you might be missing something. If it was longer than 2 minutes, then you're adding too much detail for our gesture drawings. So gesture drawings are quick. They are studies of the movement or the essence or the flow of that particular thing. On the other side, when we look at figure drawings are these longer, slower forms of working. And in our figure drawings, we're really going to be looking at kind of 3 things. We're looking at our contours within the figure. We're looking at the forms that we see within the figure. And then we're looking at our tones. So we're going to look at those 2 things separately here. We're going to start off with gesture drawing. And in order to do that, I have my little student volunteer, since none of you are allowed to be in the room here. We can give this guy a name if we desire here. But we're going to take our student volunteer and we're going to strike him into a pose. For our gesture drawings, I'm going to provide you a little vault of poses. And so let's say we've got this guy and he is knees together and he is scared about something. So we've got that pose struck there. I'm going to render that as best I can here in a gesture, and I'm going to show you how this doesn't need to be a long, drawn-out thing. So last week, when Mr. G was showing you kind of that wire form for creating the human body, we saw that we can use a stick figure base to create a proportionally accurate human form. We're going to stick with that concept of the stick figure base, but instead of looking at capturing the proportions perfectly, we're going to try to capture the expression or the essence of this pose. You guys ready for this? So I'm going to start with the head, and if I look, the head is kind of angled back. You can see I'm drawing from my view, you see the other side, but I think that for the most part, we're going to be looking at kind of the same thing here. And so the head's angled back a little bit, and so I'm going to look at capturing that with a quick shape there. I am not doing this straight on, but it's angled, and it's more ovaline than circle. And then from there, I'm going to look, and on this form, we can see that there's this kind of curve that the body's making. As we move through the chest here, it's curving and bowing out, and then we've got this leg that's sticking back and going back here. So if I'm trying to capture that, I might think of like the angle of my shoulders. These shoulders have a nice edge to them. So I'm going to map a line in for the angle of my shoulders the same way that I would if I was doing a proportionally accurate body. And then I'm going to try to capture this curve that the body has of angling out. Now I am still thinking about how proportions are affecting this. I'm not going to have this leg continue all the way down because we know that the human body isn't that big. We know that the human body is roughly 7 to 8 heads tall, depending on the individual. And so I'm just, as I'm working that, I'm portioning this out in with those body proportions in mind. So I've got that form, and then from here, I can quickly build on some of like what Mr. G was talking about last week with our wire form. Those arms are angled up, and this front one that you see is angled kind of straight up, and then this one's cutting across and over, and then we've got the hips in here. I am not really worrying about my tool marks being nice and clean. I am worrying about instead getting that basic gesture done. Now, as we talk about gesture, we're talking about capturing that flow or that movement. And so with this drawing, I'm going to do my gesture in red here. I could argue that my gesture is kind of this like C curve. Do you see how that curve is moving through the body or through that gesture, through that form? And so as we look at our gesture drawings, we're looking at capturing the essence of that pose. So if we had someone who was like in the middle of running, that gesture might look something like this, where we have a form and then we're adding other legs to that form. Again, we're keeping it loose. How long did this take? This was like a 5-second gesture. And so gestures are quick. They are studies of movement. They are studies of bodies in motion, of capturing the essence of a particular event. At this point, I'm going to end this video, go watch that Proco video, and then we're going to come back and do some figure drawings. Remember that your assignment for this week is going to be to create 10 gesture drawings. I'm going to include a selection of forms, some reference pictures for you to work off of. If you have siblings that you want to use as your base or your models, go ahead and do that. But go watch that Proco video and then do 10 gesture drawings, and then come back and we'll talk about figure drawings.